Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to receive and apply feedback for your animations. Right now I have the reload that we finished last time loaded up into Sync Sketch. Sync Sketch allows you to load in videos and review them. You can scrub through the timeline, you can add comments to certain frames, and you can also add sketches. It makes it nice and easy for people to point out specific things in your animation. This is one of the more popular ones, but of course there's other options like keyframe or something else that you can use to add sketches and comments. So I've gone and left a few comments on some of the sections of the animation that I'm not too happy with, as well as gotten some friends to leave comments as well. So the first comment here at frame 3 says there's too much easing into the start of the reload. For snappy response in game, let's cut a few frames here so it gets started faster. If we scrub through, you can see it does actually start quite slowly, which is nice if you're just watching it, but if you press the reload button, you want to get that instant response from the animation starting. So jumping into our scene file, I'm just going to select all of the keys. And I'm thinking I want to set a key on frame 4. So we're going to jump straight from 0 to 4. I'll delete everything in between. And then I'll shift select it in the timeline and drag it across. Now we're jumping from here to here, which is a lot snappier than it was before. And it'll feel much more responsive when we play the animation in game. So the next comments are about the left hand. It's coming out a little bit too far. You can see the sketch here. It's going down and then around, as well as tracking the base of the glove here, coming too far down and then back up. So we want to simplify it a little bit, have it a bit more direct, still give it a bit of a curve, but not have it come down quite as far. Now if I select the left wrist, I do see we have a little bit of gimbal lock going on here. You can see the curves are swinging out a little bit too far here. It is locking up just a little bit and making it a little bit harder to get the exact pose we want, but it shouldn't be too bad for figuring out what we want to do with the more direct path. Now I'm actually struggling a little bit to fix the gimbal lock that's going on here. Everything I do tends to make it worse or get some strange rotations. So in this case I'm going to try switching it from ZXY, which it currently is. I'm going to use AnimBot's rotate order changer. And I can see that XYZ is the best right now. So I'm going to switch that and it's made it a little bit better. But I would not recommend doing this unless your pipeline supports it because it can create issues further down the line. To avoid issues like this in the future, you could use an extra control as a kind of buffer with a better rotation order, or just test out some poses before animating so you can see what rotation order works the best. So I've got the wrist going a little bit more directly and it's feeling better, but the thumb definitely needs some work, so I'm going to do that now. I'm also just going to adjust the index finger a little bit so it's a bit more exaggerated. Alright, I've done some cleanup and I think I'm pretty happy with this. The wrist is more direct, it doesn't come down as much. And the thumb still clears. And I've just done a little bit of polish on this section as well. The next comment we have on frame 22. You could plus up the reaction on the mag up by adding extra roll rotation on this frame. Whenever roll is mentioned, it's going to be along the gun. If I jump back into Maya and select the gun control, it's going to be this axis here. And if I change to gimbal view, I've already got the ZXY rotation order set up that I've mentioned in the previous video, so I always have a roll axis available to me. So I already have a bit of reaction here. You can see it ziggles down and up and down again, but we want to make it a bit more pronounced, so I'm going to drag the frame 18 one up a little bit, and that gives it a bit more reaction. The next comment, frame 28, is about the finger regrips. They're a little bit disconnected from the rest of the repositioning, which is happening a little bit later on, so we can move them later. But the first thing I want to address is actually the pose. Frame 42, I've commented that the receiver gets a bit too close to camera here, so I think the gun definitely gets foreshortened here a bit too much. We want to keep it more upright and don't change the angle too much during the reload. The first thing I'm going to look at is the X-axis, which we want to have a little bit more upright so that it's not as intensely foreshortened. So I just brought those down, which means it rotates up a little bit more. And I actually quite like how that feels, but I still want to adjust the rest of the pose. Another thing while I'm working on that is on frame 52, one of the comments is that the mag in angle doesn't feel very strong. It doesn't quite look like it's angled up enough to be inserted well. So the suggestion is rolling the gun a little bit more towards camera, so clockwise, so that the angle is a bit more clearly communicated. I'm going to go into the Z axis again and just adjust things. Now the left wrist is broken right now, but I think this kind of pose works pretty well. It is a bit of a deviation from this first one, but it works better than bringing it close and foreshortened to camera. I'm going to move the finger regrip a little bit later as well, so that it happens as this little reshouldering happens. Okay, I fixed the left arm and the wrist so it's a little bit less broken now. It's a bit more of a natural angle. One thing that is standing out to me is that the center of the screen is blocked by the hand. So I'm thinking I want to lower the gun a bit just so that the center is free, so the player, if it was for a game, would be able to see what's happening in front of them still. I'm tracking the back of the receiver here as well, and it comes a bit too far to the right as it moves here, and then goes left again. So I'm wanting to reduce that. Another note here on Sync Sketch is that the angle of the mag and hand coming into frame is feeling a little similar to the exit, so we'll try something different. I'm probably also going to speed up the hand, so I'm going to move the frames a little later. Alright, I've reworked the section a little bit. I think it's feeling pretty good. The mag comes in at a slightly different angle, and I'm happy with how the mag in is feeling. This comment at frame 40 about how the pivot was feeling a little bit obvious has now been solved as well because we've gotten rid of the second pose. You can see it was pivoting quite obviously from the center here, and now with the downwards translation it's a little bit less obvious. Now one thing that's super obvious that I missed when I was making the animation last time is that the mag release starts moving before the mag rocks in. That's probably just because I retimed the mag in and forgot about the mag release. That's a pretty easy fix. I'm just going to drag these frames across a little bit. So in this frame we want it to not be moving, and then as it rocks in, it goes in and then back out. I think I want it to be a little bit faster. Boom, like that. And then it eases out again. If I turn on subframe interpolation, you can see it snaps in like that. You can see I've also added a little bit of overshoot in the mag as it goes in, just for a bit extra impact. The last comment we have here about this breakdown, the pose is kind of nice and it feels dynamic, but it does come down quite a lot and then raises up during the return to idle. We want to try pitching the rifle downward earlier and being a bit more stable vertically. Now as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that the gun body feels a bit more natural if it stays lower, so then it gets raised up. Because if it gets raised up, the hand ends up too high. Alright, I've reworked this a fair bit and I think it's in a pretty good spot. It is quite different to how it was. It was really foreshortened, then we went really far down and then overshot and then came back up. It's similar but also quite different now. It stays low and then it starts to pitch down earlier and then still has a little bit of a raise up. But it feels a lot more direct. I've also sped up the hand so it's not too slow regripping on the AK. It feels nice and snappy and it gets into a support position for the rest of the return to idle quite quickly. Overall, I'm really happy with how these updates turned out. The comments helped refine it and give it a little bit more of a tactical feel, tightening up some of the timing and the spacing and making sure everything reads well. Feedback is a great way to improve your animations. I definitely recommend getting feedback from your friends or other animators, especially if they're more experienced than you. They'll be able to pick out things that you haven't spotted and make your animation that much better. I'll catch you next time and happy animating!